Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So we are here again in our lecture series, which is in property survey. So in this lecture, we are going to discuss the introduction for the property survey. So I'm going to give you some of the definition of terms that we need to uh, know first before we proceed to the rest of the chapters. So the objective of this presentation, at the end of this chapter, you should be able to define property in a property survey. We have here differentiate possession from in ownership, identify the purpose of conducting a survey of the land, and define the basic surveying terms. Okay, let's start with the number one. So when we say a property, so we all know what is a property. It could be a real property or it could be a personal property. So when we say a property, by definition itself, it is anything which is or may be subject of appropriation. Say appropriation and maimo, say property. So a real property is a land or an estate in land. Possibly another also is a balay, that is a real estate. Generally includes whatever is built or growing upon the land. So including the trees. So for example, may dana palitin tuna. So nagpapadagdag, may dana pa mga puno o may da pa mga trees nga growing, may da balay. So those are real properties. Everything that is naturally growing on that property is called a real property also. So it may be defined as to include anything that is immovable. So when you say immovable, diri mo pwede i-transfer from one place to another, or kung i-transfer mo hiya, marurubah hiya. So mawawalan imo sense. So magiging that is a real properties. For example, real properties, immovable properties, this includes pag may wall, tapos may nakabutang na picture frame, so if you take out the picture frame out of the wall, then the effect is magiging kulang yung presentation ng wall. So it affects to the life of the wall. So which means those are immovable property. So diri dapat ting tangalon ang picture frame na wall because it's part of the wall. So it's part of the properties of the wall. So that is called a real property. So when we say naman movable, for example, a ball pen. So if you own a ball pen, so that those are personal properties, your bags, laptop, computers, and so on, those are movable properties. So if we define movable properties, these are also called a personal property. Say all property other than the real property. So except those kung diriya land, diriya balay. So it generally refers to the property that is movable. So we have also the terms ownership and possession. So kung in this sense, medyo makaparehahiya an ownership and possession. Ownership, nag-own ako. If you possess, nag-possess akong thing, you still own. So, but there is the difference between the ownership and the word possession. So in ownership, by definition, it is the independent right. So pag sinabing ownership, right mo yun. So independent right of exclusive enjoyment and control of a thing. So may control ka sa kabutang nga gin-own mo, pwede mo siya i-enjoy for the purpose from deriving therefrom. So pwede ka magkuhain profit out of that ownership from all advantages required by the reasonable needs of the owner and the promotion of the general welfare. So it should be in promotion, take note, in promotion to the general welfare. So which means except those na gamiton mo ang imuhan ownership na pwede maka-affect kan imo neighborhood. For example, may dakatuna and gusto mo magtayo, may napalit nga property which is 5 hectares, tas gusto mo patayuan hin pigiri or dako na manukan. Tapos it can cause health problems to your neighbor since ada ka nakabutang damo ni mo mga neighbors pero ginbutangan mo mga establishment nga pwede maka-affect sa health and imo mga neighbors. So ikaw, you own the property but there is still a restriction. So you own, you enjoy, pwede mo mukhang profit, but there is the restriction with accordance to the law. But subject to restriction again, imposed by the rights of the other. So if still own one property, amo na to example ko, in mga piggery nga dako, tapos kung damo na ang mga baboy, ananabo, may smell na, then can cause public health, and imo mga and water or mga disposal ng mga manure han baboy nakatunan imo source of water nan imo neighborhood, so it can cause or it can affect. So even if you own that property, it will is subject to some restriction. So when you say possession, so you possess one object or a property, so the holding of a thing or the enjoyment of a right. So nakuha niyo yung difference ng possession and ownership. Yung right mismo ng property which you possess. So, okay. Either by material occupation or by the fact of subjecting the thing or right to the action of our will. So, the relation between the possession and ownership, so there's a difference. Pag sinabi mong ownership is act or state or right of owning something. So, you own something. So, pag sa possession naman, pag sa right ng act, right of having physical custody or controlling something, which means nahuhold mo siya. So, that is a possession. Ownership gives the right to possession, while yung possession does not give the right to ownership. Si ownership naman is always with the owner of a property. For example, may daka property and kulang kan kwarta, kailangan mo ng kwarta, so igsasangla mo an imuha property. Ha, ibang nga tao, isangla lang. So kung isangla nimo, an imo buyer, an nag-mortgage sa imo property, so they are now possessing the property, but you are still the owner of the property. So I think that is the right example to differentiate possession and ownership. So ownership can be classified as private, collective, and common. For example, a parcel of land, so that is a private property or common property. So possession can be classified as actual, constructive, and criminal. So for example, possession of firearms. So you own, that is not being called as ownership because that is illegal. Ang ownership ng firearms. So you only possess the firearms. Okay? So the common topic that we are going to discuss in this subject is the survey of the land. So whichever property are we going to subject for the survey. So it deals with laying out or measuring the length and direction of the lines forming the boundaries of the real property or landed property. So mostly, the purpose of conducting the survey is to determine the bearing and distance or the meets and bounds of a property. So as a property survey is the utilization of the land by definition, utilization of the land surveying techniques and procedure to obtain. Number one is the size, anong area ng property, the shape, and the location of the land. So yung tatlo, hindi talaga siya mawawala. To determine the size, to determine the shape, which is in the form of maps and plans, makikita ng imo purma ng tuna, and the location, saan nakalocate yung property, sino yung magiging owner, yung claimant of a certain individual group of people. So this is the very compact definition of a property survey. So we are not only determining the quality or the measurement, but we also determine its location, kung saan siya nabutang, the owner, the transfer of owners, the ownership, and so on. So ang goal ng property surveys, why that's why I asked you last time what is the reason why a client wants our services. So some students answer, ma'am, because of the conflict between both parties. Sa nagpapasurvey ang tao, pwede have titling purposes, so which is right. So at the end goal ng papakandak ng survey is to produce accurate and reliable maps and technical data approved by end goal ng pagpapakandak ng survey is to number one, to produce accurate and reliable maps and technical data or yung technical description mismo, approved by the government agency, pwedeng sa DNR, pwedeng sa LRA, thus becoming the public document. So para magiging available siya in the public. So that is the main goal of conducting a survey. So this will serve as the basis or evidence for land ownership. So ito yung pinaka-goal as mandated to the Act 496, which is the land registration of the property. So to make this, yung ating magiging technical description, technical data na ipapasa natin sa DNR is magiging public document. And pwede siyang maging basis or evidence for land ownership. So, pag mayroon ka lang napasurvey na yung lupa, and then you can the owner can apply for titling. So that certificate of title na makukuha mo upon filing an application for titling will serve as the evidence that you own that single property. Okay. So the purpose of property survey, number one is to secure the necessary data for writing the legal description of the finding of the area, so determination of the area, and the boundaries of the property being defined by the visible objects or yung mga monuments, and etc. Number one is to re-establish the boundaries. So, ang survey na ginagawa dito pag nag-re-establish ng boundaries is, one of the example is relocation survey. So, pag nawala yung mga monuments ng corners or monuments ng property, pwede natin siyang i-re-establish, ilagyan natin ng bagong corners, laging bagong monument, I mean, of the previously surveyed property. So pag lalo na pag matagal na siyang na-survey, nawala yung mga monuments, so we can re-establish the boundary. To subdivide the tract of land into 2 or more smaller units in which we can employ subdivision survey. So these are the things we need to take note in conducting the surveys. So the claimant of these lands may or may not be necessarily the owner. So pag may nagpapakandak ng survey. So have here, the true owners will be determined either through administrative or judicial proceeding. So in the case of a property in which hindi pa nakatitle to anybody property, so anyone who wants to claim that property, they can apply for titling as long as they follow the proper procedures for applying for the titling. The ultimate purpose of a property survey is to obtain patent or yung title mismo, yung titulo ng lupa to a land if it's alienable and disposable. When I say alienable and disposable, ito yung mga property ng lupa na agricultural na pwede ma-own privately by a certain individual, or if it's private property. So yung A and B na property, ito yung mga agricultural lands na binibigay sa mga tao para matituluhan yung kanilang mga lupa. So, maraming nagsasabi na yung survey, yung ibang profession nagsasabi madali lang ang trabaho ng geodetic engineer. So, lalo na pag isang survey lang, di ba? Makakuha kita ng usa ka survey, labi-labi na kung we are using the advanced technology, pila lang ka oras, tapos na ang survey. So, very easy, madali lang ang trabaho ng G. But if you look into the process diagram, how are we going to conduct the survey, it takes a lot of time, takes a lot of, kailangan practice also, it needed, kailangan maaram ka damon nga law. So these are the process diagram. Let's start with the request of the survey. For example, if you are a practicing genetic engineer, so yung client mo magre-request sa'yo. So the request of the survey, and if the survey is ongoing, you conduct the research, the reconnaissance, nagla-land survey ka na. After you conduct the land survey, you prepare the survey returns. Yung mga survey returns, ito yung mga documents na kailangan ng DNR na pipirmahan ng DNR para ma-approve yung plano na isasabit mo. And we're going to discuss this survey returns in the next topic. Okay? After your plans and map has been approved, and then there is an evaluation and approval from the DNR. So madali lang. But in the real sense, yung property survey, marami siyang sub work na kailangan gawin. So yung request ng survey, it could be private, pwede rin yung mga government entity na mag-request ng magpa-survey sa'yo. So yung land survey preparation, yung survey returns, yung gagawa mismo ng trabahong to is only a licensed genetic engineer. So mga G lang. So bawal yung mga feeling genetic engineer lang. So for the role, for the evaluation and approval ng mga plano, so pwedeng yung mga taga-LMS ng DNR, Land Management System, yung taga-Land Management Service, yung mga taga-DNR, yung Land Registration Authority, so depende sa property na ipapasurvey mo. We have also, kung nagsasurvey ka, you need to be knowledgeable on the different laws applicable to that type of property na undergo ka ng survey. We have also you must understand what is in the Cadastral Act, the PD 957 or yung subdivision, PD 1529, kung ano yung nasa DAO 98-12 and others. So if you are not yet familiar with this law, so we are going to discuss each one of this in this subject, and also in your land registration na subject. So all of these laws will be tackled in your law subject. Okay? So pag focus tayo dito sa land survey, since dito tayo, dito yung role ng GE mismo sa land survey. Sa land survey, meron siyang subgroup na kailangan i-conduct ng survey. Number 1 is yung scope ng survey. Ano yung procedure, yung actual na pagkakandak doon sa field. Position ng survey. When you say position ng survey, yung dito yung mabasihan kung saan siya nagre-reference, yung mga reference point niya, ano yung mga coordinate system na dapat i-fix if you are going to conduct the survey. Well, another is the control or the accuracy. Hindi yung nagsasurvey ka lang, conduct ng survey. So you need to take account what are the accuracy that needs to be met in conducting the survey. So for example, if you conduct isolated survey, tapos ang error mo is, for example lang may error ka na 20 centimeter. So sabi, maliit lang yan, 20 centimeter. So, but does it pasok ba sa accuracy or standard na ginawa ng DNR? So pag hindi pasok sa standard ng DNR, one of the main cause is pwedeng ma-reject or pwedeng ipa-revise sa'yo yung ginawa mong service. And it takes a lot of time pa. So you need to be knowledgeable para tipid ka sa oras and tipid ka sa budget. So the survey returns, again, this is the documents that need to be submitted to the DNR after you conduct the survey. So it includes the plan, yung computation mo, and the documents as evidence of the survey, and documents owned by the owner of the property. So kailangan yung mga plano mo pasok sa standards ng mapping standards ng lot data computation, mga computation kailangan mong isubmit, and other requirements submittal. So maraming, depende sa type of survey, depende rin sa mga requirements. So let's go to the definition of terms which we are going to encounter in this subject. So when I say cadastral map, refers to the map result for the cadastral survey. If you happen to, in your survey camp, some of the group were able to search for a cadastral map, iton nga usa ka municipality nga damon mga subdivided parcels ng mga lot owner and may mga lot number and naka-blueprint, that is an example output of a cadastral survey. So those are cadastral map. So si kadastre refers to the record about the parcel of land consisting of spatial data. So delimitation survey, establishment of a permanent forest land and protected area by conducting an actual ground survey. So this type, ang delimitation survey, for example, may na-declare yung taga-Tacloban City, dineclare nila yung Northern Tacloban na natural park. So, ang ginawa nila, nag-survey sila on the ground, tapos himuan nila boundaries and bugos nga natural park. So, those are delimitation survey. Geodetic engineer, sino ba si GE? Siya yung person with professional expertise in the field of surveying who has been issued a certificate of title, or yung COR, and identification card by the PRC board of GE. We have also GNSS, provides autonomous geospatial positioning with global coverage, so which use satellite system. So there are four types of GNSS. One is the GPS. So one is the GPS, we have the Navstar, we have the Beidou, and also those are from the other countries, from the UK. So we are using the GPS from the US. Sa aton mga cars, navigation, mga surveying instrument, nga naggamit hin GPS. We have also land registration. So this is the official recording of land ownership based on the legal documents submitted to the ROD, or Register of Deeds. Si Register of Deeds naman, siya yung office na repository ng lahat ng certificate of title. Sila yung ano ba sa warayan tawagan, naghihipos. I think they are one who are keeping the certificate of title of the owners. Meets and bounds. So this is the description of a land parcel, either by bearing and distance. It could be natural and man-made features within municipality project, the purpose of describing and recording of the ownership. So si kadastre, it refers to a set of records about the parcel of the land consisting spatial reference and related information on the area. So it could be ang tag-iya. One of the purpose of conducting a cadastral survey or a cadastre is for taxation, para mahibawaan kung hinatag-iya hintuna, ano niya lot number, hay niya banda, hinuan nag-claim, ano niya value. So it could be residential, i-identify na cadastral survey kung agricultural land ba hiya, residential ba hiya. So because magdepende kasi ang tax kung agricultural, kung mas agricultural mas barato, residential mas mahal yung isusukot na tax. And for other purposes, and primarily is for the taxation purposes. So that is the main goal of the cadastral survey. Pagka may bagan ID an imo property. So may kita tawag na cadastral for example, cadastral lot 123 CAD 154. Amot ito ang ID an imo property. It could be tapos agricultural bahiya. So hinuan claimant, hain hiyab dapit, hinon iya mga sapit. So those are the information that we get from the cadastral survey. Monument, dimhon, is this concrete object set permanently in the ground to mark the position of point or a boundary corner. So yung mga mohon. Monuments of the titles. This is called the deeds and documentary evidence of title of ownership of a land. So we have also the PIS. This is the partial information sheet. This is document recording the boundary adjudication agreement by all concerned and participating claimant or owners in collaboration with the GE, barangay official, adjudicator, and indicating the describing boundaries of a land parcel. So one of the example is para ang PIS is just a piece of paper in which nakasulat ang imo property. May the sketch gutihan imo property. Sa sketch nakabutang adto aniya kung hinuan sapit ha left, right, north, and south na mga properties. Ngapos igbubutang adto kung hinuan owner ini nga property nga nasa north, hinuan owner ha property nga nakadiha south, owner ha property nga diha west nga part, and all of those owner kailangan nila mapirma ito nga papel. So to adjudicate nga pag set-hand survey waray hirareklamo, and also it should be annotated and signed by the GE, barangay official, and so on kung hinot pwede nakada as witness. Another term, we have the patrimonial property. So properties owned by the state. So not intended for public use or public service, diria pwede, or development of the national wealth. So owned by the state. See, projection maps. These are maps where all subject for verification and approval are plotted to determine cases of overlaps with previously approved plan. So si projection maps is makikita natin hiyang tilang HDNR. So once ang GE mag-conduct ng survey, tapos niya mag-conduct ng survey, magdo-drawing niya maps after papa-approve niya HDNR. Pag check HDNR, ito ni mo tuna, kumbaga i-overlay ha data nga nakadto ha DNR once diri magtugmaan nimo survey and nakadto ha data ha mga taga DNR mga poseyra mismo projection maps, so which means may sayupan may problema ni imo survey, so you need to revise or you need to reconduct the survey kung may kung dakuan sayo. So PRS 92, so you are familiar with the Philippine Reference System of 1992. That is the National Common Coordinate Reference System for all surveys and maps in the Philippines. So this is in accordance to the Executive Order number 45, which is signed during January 5, 1983. So we have also reclamation projects. So mga reclaimed area, filling of submerged land duly approved by the Philippine Reclamation Authority. So reference points o yung ating mga BLLM, so appropriately mark on the ground with the established horizontal and vertical position. So ito yung ating tinatawag na mga control points. Survey plan, so this is the two-dimensional map showing meets and bounds of the parcel. So two-dimensional map, yung ating survey plan, your vicinity map, yung subdivision plan, yung relocation plan, so nga may technical description, those are survey plan. Survey returns, this is a collective document submitted by the GE as a result of the survey conducted. So damoy niya nga documents. Unique parcel identifier, yung UPI, these are number exclusively assigned to a land parcel, reference to its physical spatial position of the land information map. So every property has its own UPI. So I guess this is the end for this presentation. So the next chapter, we will proceed to the next chapter. So thank you for listening to this video lecture. So see you on the next presentation.